Anna Hafer.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Leo.
Here.
Russ Hall.
Present.
Jen Hoffman.
Present.
Tanya Ludwig.
Present.
Scott McCullough.
Present.
Brian Yates.
Present.
Has Joe Raffiani signed on yet? Mr. Raffiani will be joining us. He was just finishing up at the office and heading home. So when he gets on, we'll make sure that he's noted as being present and the chair is present. So that moves us to our first agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. And the purpose of this agenda item is that Superintendent Upton will continue to provide the latest information on school closures, educational platforms, and other items the district is focused on this week. And with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Upham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Nice to see the 60 and 70 degree temperatures, I'll tell you that. It's an excellent weekend, and so a lot in front of us tonight. I had planned on bringing forward a teacher and an administrator to really talk about the day-to-day issues that we're dealing with, because I thought it was very pertinent and relevant to the conversations we've been having just about how are our students doing and how are we engaging and so on and so forth. But I'll do that next week, just due to the amount of information that we need to work through tonight. And what I'd like to start off with is graduation. Obviously, we know that the governor gave a press conference last week, implemented local control as of May 7th, and then a guidance on the reopening of Montana and suggestion for schools. And if you have the document in front of you, before I start talking about graduation, there are 4 tenets that he lists in the school reopening considerations continued from reopening Montana. I asked Brandon to put this document up. The 4 tenets are, under graduation ceremonies, are provide a live stream of graduation, consider limiting spectator attendance. For larger schools, consider grouping graduates or providing multiple ceremonies, and then follow social distancing between families. And looking at those 4 tenets were the tenets actually that were guiding us from the beginning. And I'd opened up this conversation with our community quite some time ago, anticipating that traditional graduation probably wouldn't be held with thousands of people. And in that conversation, I included Mr. Felton, our county health advisor or officer. But when I floated the idea of a virtual graduation, the responses came back from our students and our parents is that, no, we don't want that. If we can, postpone it or go later into the year, something to that effect. Well, we looked at those options, and, everything really is we've looked at. And then also, it came into conflict with students who may have to leave immediately following graduation, like our students who are involved in the military and those types of situations. So with that being said, as you look at the reopening and the governor's phase 1, this is going to be critical in understanding of why this process was put together. Phase 1 talks about, 10 groups of 10 or less and social distancing in an appropriate format as defined in the reopening and considerations continued. So what does that mean? Well, you can't have any groups larger than 10. They cannot be within 6 feet of each other. And if there are others around, then you have to be able to move yourself out, have some space. So what we have in place here for graduation and listening to our students and families is to honor our graduates in each individual high school by bringing them in groups of 10 and having them, the stages will be decorated as normal. Our valedictorians will read, but it will be broken up in groups of 10 and anticipating probably a couple to several days to get it done, where we'll invite our graduates in with their cap and gown. They will walk up on stage, their name will be read, they'll receive their diploma. We won't hand the diploma probably, but it'll be there available to them. That will all be videoed, and then that will all be put together and then presented on March 24th at 11 a.m. for all 3 schools. We wanted to be able to honor our students in a personal format, not a virtual format, so that they had the opportunity to cross that stage, walk across that stage with their name being announced, and complete that process in that manner. Now, because of the guidelines around the 10 students or 10 individuals or less, at this time we're not allowed to have invited guests. And so the principals were excited about this. I was excited about it, wished it obviously could be more. But as we look at the components or the process, I did run this by our chief medical officer, and he has approved it. And so that's a nice thing about offering a graduation where our students can be in a live format, can be honored in the manner that they need to be monitored in, and then we can follow the governor's social distancing and phase 1 requirements. And so the high schools would like to begin, because it will take a couple or several days to begin the process in mid-May to early May as they walk through this. So I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions.
Good. Questions for Superintendent Upham?
So I have a question.
I saw Jana's hand up. Jana, will go with you, and then with, I think it was Russ.
Greg, I just want to understand this. Okay, so we're going to be at each individual high school and the career center, or just the 3 high schools?
Just the 3 high schools.
3 high schools. We're going to decorate the auditorium or the gym?
The stage in the
The
auditorium.
stage, okay. And 10 students will come at a time in their cap and gown
Yep.
and walk across the stage. Their name will be read.
Mm-hmm.
They'll walk across the stage. They will pick up their diploma. No one
Yep.
will hand it to them.
Yeah, because of the social distancing, we anticipate having 10 diplomas on the table, one that they can reach and receive, and then when they're through, then we'll disinfect the table, and the next 10 will come in.
Is it not possible to do masks and have a person hand it to them?
Well, that's something we can talk about with the flexibility of this. Totally open to any suggestion like that, if it's workable. We didn't present that option with Mr. Felton, but we surely can.
And then what about honoring the valedictorians and that kind of thing? How does that work?
Yeah, the graduation, what the high school principals wanted was the exact graduation ceremony that they're used to having. So the valedictorians will, through social distancing and the 10-person rule, will come up and read their part, which will be recorded, and then as graduates move through, it will all be spliced together and put together as one component to be published on May 24th at 11 a.m. So it
Will there
should
be
look,
anybody in the audience during this procedure, either the walking or the valedictorians?
at this time, no.
Okay, and what about photos? Will there be a photographer taking photos of all this?
Yes, we have reached out to Life Touch for photos.
Okay, but no parent photos.
No parent photos.
That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jana. And Russ, did you have a question or comment?
Question. Well, a comment first. Can we see a copy of that, the sheet that Brandon was sharing? Is there a chance we can get that in our email?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be great. Is it possible to get that during this meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that'd be great. And then the question after a comment. It looks like a good plan. It sounds like we've thought about the students, we've listened to the principals. So I'm encouraged by this plan. If the governor lifts or pushes the restrictions to 50, or we're prepared to then increase those numbers?
Yeah, Trustee Hall, thank you for bringing that forward. One of the things that's really interesting with this whole pandemic is the change in the flexibility. In the case that we would move from phase 1 to phase 2, it allows us more flexibility on what that would look like. So, could we bring in more graduates? Well, we could. Would we be able to invite spectators? Well, possibly, if we can manage that. So it gives us flexibility on that moving forward, and we surely would build this for flexibility because of that. And we have had that discussion. So thank you for that question.
Are there additional questions or comments?
A question.
Jen Hoffman?
I saw Brian's hand first.
Oh, I
Oh, no,
missed.
go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. If we have to stick with the 10 students at one time to,
We lost you for a second, Jen.
okay. Am I back?
Yep.
You're back.
Okay. So if we have to stick with the 10 students, would it be possible to have 2 parents or the option of 2 guardians to sit in that large auditorium to watch them do that? Or is it a better possibility to maybe do something outside where we can have a larger space?
Well, I'd have to ask Mr. Felton that part. We stayed with the 10 person grouping and a small support piece to ensure that we were within the parameters of that. But it's surely something that I can follow up on.
And did you want to comment on the outside arena?
Pardon me, Madam Chair.
Jennifer asked, had you considered an outdoor venue?
We did initially, and due to the ability to gauge what the weather's going to be like, the principals felt safer with it being inside.
And I guess one more question. Did any of the principals happen to reach out to any of the students to ask them their opinion on this? I know we're doing as best as we can do, and I get that, but I see a lot of people asking these questions, so I'm just asking them.
Yeah, I can confidently say that the exchange of information from members of the public, students, to even my email, their email has been quite extensive.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Yates?
I had a question. So if we go with the 10 students in the auditorium, and it sounds like a very, well, organized plan, the auditoriums are big. The decision to not, so can we look at a way to cordon off sections of the auditorium and allow students to bring parents or guardians? If it's 2, give them a limit, but make sure. So I guess my question is the reason we wouldn't do that, is it because of distancing purposes, which I think in the auditoriums would be easy to eliminate and keep same households together and well beyond 6 feet from each other? Or is it more of it's more of the total number of people gathering? Or is it something that we could do?
It's the total number of gathering.
Okay.
That was the big challenge in all of this was the gathering, and the gathering when you get there and the gathering when you leave, so that you could maintain that safe 10 or less. As Trustee Hall had mentioned, phase 2 with 50 or more gets us into a much easier game, if you will. But it's exactly that, Trustee Yates. It's the gathering.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I have one more thing. Is it possible to wait and see, maybe until the late summer?
Well, the challenge with waiting was the students who had to leave immediately. That is a challenge, or that can't come back, or that have to leave. It's very difficult once a class graduates, that even the next day, to bring them all together. It's just a challenge. So we wanted to be able to honor all of them as soon as possible. The other part of bringing up, larger groups together is the ability to disinfect when one group enters and one group leaves. And so that's a part in all of this.
Other questions, comments? I have a question.
Sure.
Since you are looking at doing this over a period of multiple days, when do you anticipate the graduation ceremonies beginning?
I spoke with our high school principals, and they're ranging mid-May, maybe a little bit sooner than that, depending on kind of what their schedules are. But we met with them last Friday, walked through all the logistics, and I really compliment Executive Director Ms. Koch and the high school principals for coming up with this plan. I thought it was as good as we could have with where we are at this time. So they anticipate mid-May, maybe a little bit sooner than that, depending on kind of where they are in their buildings and what's going on. But that was the initial plan.
Given the governor's directive and the timeline when he has released different directives, would you anticipate that we would have a phase 2 directive before mid-May?
Well, I had that conversation with our county health officer about, do you anticipate phase 2 starting? When would you anticipate it? Do you have any type of timeline, anything that would help guide us in the 10 to 50? Because it changes things, in our favor, for our students' favor, for our families' favor. And it just didn't have, near the end of May, June, July, there just was not a definitive timeline at all that I could attach to help make the decision.
So when you're looking at a mid-May, are you thinking May 15th or are you thinking May 10th? Have you looked with your executive directors and staff? You're going to need a number of staff to be involved in it. And could you also walk through the process of what 10 kids are being identified? How are they coming into the school? How are they getting into the auditorium and keeping the social distancing that is under the governor's directive?
Yeah, the principals are grouping them, I think, by alphabet. They hadn't completed that decision as of last Friday. And then they will bring in a sets of 10 that will be guided to a classroom. And then as soon as the 10 have completed and they've done the disinfecting and cleaning, then they'll ask for the next classroom of 10, walk them to the auditorium, ask for the next classroom of 10. They're hoping to do, 75 to 100, maybe 100 plus students per day. They may have increased that. I talked with Principal Hornby today. He felt that they could possibly do it in 2 days. That was a little bit larger than the conversation on Friday, but that's how they plan on doing it. Then they will have them report to a certain area so that the groups of 10 do not come in contact with each other.
And having visited with the principals, they're comfortable that they will have adequate staff to help with the staging?
Yep, they are. We talked through that on Friday, but yes, they do.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other follow-up questions, Jana?
During the time when the 10 students walk across the stage, will there be any type of pomp and circumstance, either the song or anything other than just walk across?
Yeah, I think they fully intend to make that a meaningful experience.
Okay.
A decorated stage. I didn't ask if it was going to be, if they're going to, obviously a live band isn't playing, but the recording to make it appropriate. Yeah, I trust our people to do that, Shannon. That's a very, very good question. So thank you.
Okay, and the principals will, say like they usually, welcome, or just, all that, just a little bit of it?
Yeah, they, interesting enough here, one of our principals is a father of a graduating senior. So Principal Earn, yeah, they want to do, all three of them said, we want to program like we always have. That's
Okay.
what we want to do. We want the same timing, the same process, the same acknowledgments, the same announcements. And, we thought that, we talked about the Metro, but, the students probably will not have the opportunity to say goodbye to their school. And there's an emotional part about being able to walk across their own stage in their own school and hopefully get some emotional closure that would be more endearing than not. And so the principals want to make that experience meaningful for them.
And then what role will the trustees have?
Well, we normally would have you on stage, but in this case, because of the 10-person rule, there are no trustees there. Now, I'm not saying that can't be the case, but as I've shared with John Felton, we're trying to stay within the parameters that the governor has given us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate all the work that you and the principals and staff have put into this. Trying to make it as meaningful as we can in a time of uncertainty and quite a lot of.
Greta,
Yes, Jennifer.
Russ and Joe are raising their hands.
Okay, thank you. You do not show up on my screen in the first 5. So, Russ, let me go to Joe first. And for the record, would you add Joe Raffiani as present? And Joe, you have a question, comment, Raffiani?
Greg, sorry I joined late. This is a voluntary process?
Absolutely. Yep.
And has Jeff or anyone he works with reviewed this?
Yeah, all principals have reviewed this.
Sorry, I meant Jeff Weldon.
Oh, no, I have not mentioned this to Mr. Weldon.
So I guess even if I guess that's a question maybe for Jeff. I realize you probably haven't given this a ton of thought, but is there anything liability wise, even if this is a voluntary process, that we would want to be concerned with?
No, I think as long as we do so within the guidelines that the governor provides and the CDC provides, which is, I understand, and I don't know, Greg, if you and I have talked about it specifically, but I've been tracking schools and graduation, as all this stuff unfolds anyway. There are, guidelines specifically for graduation ceremonies that the governor included in his last directive as well. I think if we follow the guidelines as we have them now, right, small groups, to social distancing, sanitation, so on and so forth, I think we reduce any sort of risk as it goes. Then the fact that it is voluntary as well. So sure, there's risk associated with it, but on the whole, as long as we try to manage that risk, given the relative benefit of it, I think it makes good sense. And before anything happens, you can well imagine Greg and his team are going to sort through all sorts of contingencies, including making sure that these events go smoothly.
Thanks, Jeff. And Russ, did you have another comment?
I did, and for our board members as well, if you check your email, Brandon has sent the proposed plan. And then a question, when will the proposed plan be available on the website for SD2? Is that can be made available tonight?
Probably tomorrow, Russ. I want to give a finalization to our high school principals and just see if there were any changes that incurred today.
Sure.
Had conversations with them. So I just want to finalize that before we post.
Okay. And then two requests, and you may have talked about them, but especially in the spirit of quarantine and the spirit of web conferencing and live streaming, can we live stream the ceremony on Facebook Live, each ceremony in each high school? They each have a page that should be able to be done. And then second, can we live stream the videos once the final video productions are available? It'd be great to live stream that so people could watch it, together. They could watch it at the same time instead of it just being an asynchronous event.
Yeah, we had talked about that on Friday, and Brandon, you may want to chime in on that, but that was our plan, was if possible, live stream the event itself as it's happening, and then live stream the collective effort once it's all put together. Yep.
Any
Brandon,
other comments?
Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so when we talked about it, really the live streaming as it's going together, because we're doing it, potentially 10 students at a time throughout multiple days. I don't think that's going to work so well, but once that production is put together, we'll be able to post links. I think the big plan is probably to try to YouTube it and Facebook it, so there's multiple outlets to view it at come that date that they wanted to post it out to the public.
So, question, Brandon, is there a reason we couldn't just live stream the entire 2 days? Just leave the video on and just watch it that way? I'm concerned about the parents. They can't be there to see it, but at least the entire family, they could know an approximate time to watch, and they could see their graduate walk across the stage. I think that'd be really important.
We could definitely discuss that. I don't have that big picture in my head of how it's going to look, but I think because you're taking 10 students in at a time, and you're trying to get them in and out before the next students come, and they're going to be trying to get those students to leave the grounds before the next 10 come on, to reduce that amount of students gathering. I think there's going to be a lot longer pauses than you think. I don't think it's going to be like 10 students at a time and they're going to walk out and 10 more students come in. I think there's going to be a lot more time in between than you think when they're putting this together, but it's definitely something we could discuss.
Right. Yeah, no, I would expect there'd be long gaps. And so, but it could be something that we literally just leave it on. No one needs to touch it. Wouldn't require any extra help. And then people would have some idea, your child is going to graduate between this 30-minute period or something like that. So maybe that I would hope that that's something that we could do. It's a little clunky. There'd be a lot of dead space. Someone would have to turn off the mic, but I think that would be really appreciated. So if we could push towards that, I would strongly urge that we do that.
I appreciate that, Russ, and totally understand and agree with you. So we'll do the best we can to do that.
Any other questions or comments about the graduation proposal?
Greta?
Mr. Leo?
Just wanted to let folks know that, students who are there could live stream the event for their small group using Periscope or other video tools. So that way, the event could be captured live as Russ seems to prefer, but, it wouldn't be a burden on the district to have to provide this ongoing stream.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Mike. Superintendent Upham, was there anything else on your report?
No, Madam Chair, I just want to thank our high school principals and Miss Koch and Brandon for walking through this. And I, excuse me, I really appreciate the feedback that we've been given from parents and students. We do understand how important this is and how emotional this is. We hope that this helps people get through some of this. It's sincerely our hope. And moving forward, I just appreciate the efforts of everyone involved. I really do. So if there's any way that we can improve moving forward, we'll surely take those under consideration and move on.
Thanks, Greg. The next item on the agenda.
Janet, Miss Hafer, Trustee Hafer is asking.
I had one more question. In the past, the graduates have had their all-night grad parties, and I know that won't be happening. Are the parents or anybody doing anything to honor the students?
Trustee Hafer, I did have an email from the organizer of that about our facilities, and had to share it. I can just see it in your voice. Had to share that we won't be able to host or allow them to host just due to the size. So I think they're looking at other options right now on what they can and can't do based on the phase one reopening of the governor's directive. So I feel for it. I feel for them. I really do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question after.
Tanya, and then Jen. Tanya, go ahead.
Just to let you guys know, there's just a thing on Facebook. It's called Adopt a Graduate. And it's put out by a photographer. And you have to be invited or to join the group. Graduate. That's graduating, or you can adopt more than one graduate. And then you can get something for the graduate to show them your support. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thanks, Tanya. You broke up a little bit. The Facebook page you said is Adopt a Graduate.
Adopt a Graduate.
Okay, thank you. And Jen was. Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe can you just, Superintendent Upham, could you just explain maybe a little bit why, maybe a little bit more in depth, why we have to stick with the 10 students when other stores are open and they're not limiting to 10 people in a confined space? Could you just elaborate a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, it follows the reduction of the transmission of the disease. And I believe Mr. Felton is on now. And I think Trustee Hoffman, I think Mr. Felton can answer the question about why 10 and the parameters around 10. So Mr. Felton, if you could address that, please.
Sure. Glad I could join you all. So the issue on 10 isn't 10 people in the building. It's when you cannot maintain physical spacing, then you have to limit the non-household member group to 10 to reduce the risk of spread. In phase 2 of the governor's plan, that number jumps to 50. But right now, if you can't maintain adequate distancing, then you have to be limited to 10 people.
Okay, great. I'm following along on our Facebook Live, and I'm reading some of the questions, and it seems that a large number of people don't understand why we can't have this outside. And they think that if we have it outside, then we'll be able to have a larger number of people, or that parents will then be able to attend if we do it outside. So I was just hoping to get maybe some clarification on what the 10 person parameter is. So thank you.
Thanks for the question, Jen, and thank you, Mr. Felton, for the answer. Are there any more before we move on to the next agenda item?
I'm sorry, Greta.
Go ahead, Brian.
Just one more. So what you said there, Mr. Felton, with the 10 with the adequate spacing. So for the gathering, if you look at the size of the auditoriums in 3 high schools, do you think that adequate spacing isn't something that we could accomplish if we were to usher a set number of family members, parents, guardians in and out? I mean, at the same point in time as we're ushering 10 students in and out of the school. Does that question make sense?
Yeah. So I think the issue really is one of the space. So if you can maintain spacing between household groups, so for instance, if you had 10 students, you would have to have space for potentially 10 groups of family members. And it only counts that the group that can be together in less than 6 feet is household members. So it's not all family members, it's just those who are in the same household. So if you had family members who are not in the same household, you'd have to be able to spread them out as well from one another. And that's where you run into that issue of how much space it really takes. To think about, to kind of test my math skills, because I did this math a while ago, if you put a 6-foot bubble around someone, if my memory of figuring the area of the circles right, it takes about 113 square feet for one person to have a 6-foot bubble around them. So it's a pretty good size space.
Brian, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Superintendent Upham, thank you to you and your staff for working hard to make this meaningful graduation for these students. I appreciate your hard work. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the remainder of the school year. And a number of people we've already heard from through our board email. We will have communication from the public as we do every meeting, whether it's virtual or in person. The communication from the public, if it pertains to this agenda item, will be read prior to the board voting if we choose to make a vote this evening. So for public comment for a virtual meeting, they can be submitted in electronic format using the Google document link provided on the district's webpage. When accessing the district's homepage, school board page, a pop-up window will appear with a link to the Google document. Submissions require a full name and home address in order to be submitted for the record and are limited to a 500 word count. Submissions will be screened and read verbally by the district clerk and an assistant if necessary. Prior to the conclusion of the meeting, again, if it pertains to the agenda item, so for example, if folks are writing in regarding opening or closing the school, those public comment submissions will be read prior to the board taking any board action. So with that, we move on to the agenda item, which is the remainder of the school year. The board is faced with a difficult decision. On March 15th, Governor Bullock directed the closure of all public schools in Montana because of the global outbreak of COVID-19 novel coronavirus. On April 22nd, Governor Bullock announced the phased reopening of Montana. Part of his declaration is shifting control of school closures to the local school boards. His April 22nd directive included these measures concerning the public schools. And if you would read through them with me for the record, and I do just want to say there was a lot of feedback to get this done immediately, but because there are so many factors that are involved, we really needed to take the time to go through a deliberative analysis. Superintendent Upham needed the time to work with staff to look at different feasibilities of opening, challenges that may be faced, and some of those he'll be presenting to us this evening. That being said, local control of school closure beginning May 7th. First bullet point, all non-residential public schools are closed through May 6th and will continue to be eligible for a waiver of public instruction time and receive associated state funding through the funding mechanism described in prior directives. Beginning May 7th, all schools have the option to return to in-classroom teaching delivery at the discretion of the local school board, so back to local control. The intent of this provision is to allow local control over decisions about the provision of quality public education to students in Montana, while assuring school districts will continue to receive full funding support from the state to provide learning. The mechanism for a gubernatorial waiver of student instruction time will expire. However, nothing in this directive prevents a local school board from declaring a local emergency as provided in 20-9-806 Montana Code Annotated. Local boards in their districts that do so will continue to receive all state funding, including transportation funding. So what that is saying is that if we do make the decision to close school, we will go ahead and declare an additional emergency so that we will get full funding and we won't be penalized by that by only 85% of the funding. The state recognizes that if a school reopens for in-person instruction, reopening will require the district to make adjustments and create plans, policies, and procedures. Schools that plan to reopen should consult the school reopening guidelines provided in the governor's directive from April 22nd. In addition, if schools plan to reopen, they should consider bullet point number 1, implementing an alternative educational delivery model that includes a mix of in-person and remote learning. 2, providing focused individual education, especially for at-risk students. 3, how to reconnect and meet the educational needs of students who fall behind in a remote learning environment. 4, the importance of maintaining the connections between students, teachers, and parents. 5, the important role that schools play in the health of students, families, and communities. And 6, the graduation environment that can meet the social distancing requirements, which we have been working on diligently with Mr. Felton. After the governor's school closure ends on May 6th, it is up to the board to determine whether the school districts remain open or closed. The options available to the board are the following. Leave the school closed pursuant to the district's education action plan adopted by the board on March 25th, 2020, with the suggested motion to move forward with the board declaring an unforeseen emergency within the meaning of that as set forth in Title 20, Chapter 9, Part 8, to become immediately effective and to continue through June 30th, 2020. This motion is based on COVID-19 risks and recognition that the governor's waiver of student instruction time will expire on May 7th, and in recognition that the governor's April 22nd, 2020 directive implicating Executive Order 2-2020 and 3-2020 specifies that elected school boards and their districts that adopt their own declaration of emergency will continue to receive all state funding, including transportation funding. To reopen school following local, state, and federal health guidelines, then that suggested motion, I move the board reopen the schools of the district consistent with Governor Bullock's April 2020 directive implementing Executive Orders 2-2020 and 3-2020 and guidance for the phase reopening of Montana. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Upham. He has been working with the different executive directors and has information to share for us about the challenges that lie ahead prior to our discussion with a potential vote. Superintendent Upham.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and trustees. So in the review of open or close, I think Mr. Felton said it best when there are no good or great options left. The concern is, what about our students who are struggling with their learning? That's a factor in all of this. What about the public safety that we're dealing with? Safety for our students, our staff, public safety in general. A lot of things to weigh out. And so as I've done since I've been to Billings, I'm a strong proponent of data and relevant information that attaches itself to a decision. So I want to walk through it in that process. Number one, we'll talk about personal and public safety, personal and public health. And as stated last Monday, the number one intervention to assisting or to eliminating, minimizing, if you will, the transmission of the disease is social distancing. And I went on record and said, I don't believe you can social distance and go to school at the same time. I don't think you can. If we tried to reduce the enrollment, which I'll talk about with transportation, you're going to see the impact. So number one, I don't believe we could social distance at a level that would allow us to maintain the safe standards that have been requested and required by the governor's directive and also the chief health officer. Number two was protective masks. We talked about protective masks last time. Even if we had the opportunity to, and I don't believe we can, and still provide transportation to reduce our enrollments by half. That would be 8,500 masks for students, 2,000 masks for staff each day for the remainder of the year. It's a significant challenge. The other intervention is temperature checks. We don't know if we could, in that time frame, acquire the amount of thermometers that would be needed to do checks moving forward. So if that is the case next year, then closing the school for the remainder of the year and extending our time to plan allows us to address those kind of issues and ask those questions. If we look at staffing, we may need or probably will need to make accommodations for our employees that are in the at-risk populations. We don't know how many there are and to what extent that is. And frankly, a lot of our substitute teachers are in the retired age. And so that would be an impact. We don't know how many substitute teachers would be available and to take the appropriate precautions for our own staff. As far as instruction goes, it would be impossible for our teachers to teach on a pure dual platform, meaning half of their students or a percentage of their students that would be on online or offsite versus face-to-face. they couldn't do it. They couldn't spend the amount of time that it would take to do that. Concern of equity, making sure at least right now we're meeting the students' needs to the best of our ability by creating a double platform. I don't know if we can maintain the level of equity that we have. Now, that being said, you could ask me the question, well, Greg, what about students who are struggling? It's a fair question, but if we came back, it may be even more of a disruption because we would have, I believe, a large percentage of students that would remain in the home anyway. And so that could create some issues for us. If we take a look at class size reductions, how would we reduce class sizes? Well, maybe we bring one grade level in a day, or we bring, basically the best way to do it that we could find was to do half days. Well, if we did half days, then we struggle immediately with transportation and the ability for transportation to turn around. In fact, in my discussions with our transportation advisor, we were unable to do it. So that has a concern, to say the least. And then in the governor's directives, if you can, put one student per seat in a bus. For SD2, that would be a challenge at best. So areas to consider. As far as instructional technology is concerned, I remind you that we have about 5,000 devices out. And in checking with our IT director, Mr. Neufer, his concern was he did not believe that we could retract the 5,000 devices, clean, disinfect, and then put them in play for instruction moving forward in a timely manner that allowed us to have appropriate instruction. So that's actually a major issue. And I had a meeting with our principals today and talked about, what is it going to look like to retrieve the technology? And that will be a significant undertaking with the amount of devices that we have out to bring in, to clean, disinfect, and then make operational again. Food service. In checking with food service, and Mr. Taylor, would be an extreme challenge to retool the kitchens in each one of our schools, resupply them, restock them, and then staff them to distribute meals. A lot of our workforce that are in the food service area, again, are in the at-risk population. And so that would have an impact. But just the ability to move from a mobile meal process that we have now to back to schools would create significant issues and change. I mentioned transportation. This is going to be an issue whether it's tomorrow or next year on what does that look like. We are going to have to spend an enormous amount of time looking at our routes, looking at the number of students on a bus, looking at the ability to disinfect the bus. All of those components are going to take some significant time and planning moving forward for sure. The other part that we will need to put in place and as a part of this is procedures and practices with confirmed or suspected COVID-19 cases. We'll need to work through the CDC, through our chief medical officer in Yellowstone County to establish what does that look like in the case that a positive COVID case is brought forward in a school. And then last but not least is the obvious, and that is the custodial components or the level of cleaning that's going to be needed. Now, we have the appropriate personnel to do what we would consider standard cleaning, but moving forward, what does it look like in the disinfecting components? And especially if we reduced class enrollments and looked at half day, those types of situations where we could end up potentially looking at double cleaning. And so there are some significant issues that we would be facing to a reopening. I did reach out to the school administrators of Montana to look across the state, and I have been, as I've shared with you, in constant contact with the AA superintendents in the large districts, and we actually shared it with Governor Bullock. But it was the consensus from the superintendents in the large schools that the challenges to go back to school were very, very large. In my conversation with Kirk Miller of School Administrators of Montana, it appears that the majority, if not most of the schools in Montana are electing to close. The ones that haven't are extremely small schools that do not have a COVID case in their county or the surrounding county that are considering it. And then in my final comment, I had a conversation with our legal counsel about the risks and liability that we would have to come in contact with, or that we'd adhere to moving forward. So if Jeff, maybe you could share some thoughts on some issues that we'd have to be concerned with.
Sure, Greg, thanks. The way I approached it is just simply a risk analysis. In other words, compare the legal risk of opening the schools to the legal risk of leaving the schools closed. And all things considered, I think the legal risk to the district is far greater if you open those schools for a whole bunch of reasons. Just among them, the guidelines that are set out by the federal government, whether or not we could actually adhere to those, and if we didn't, what consequence there could be for that. We understand that OSHA on the federal level may be looking at some of these safety issues for employees. The closure so far has created very complicated legal labor issues, and opening the school, I think, would create more of those complicated labor issues for sure. There are all sorts of possible tort claims, meaning people attempting to put legal liability on the school district through some sort of claim that the district breached a duty to its students, to perhaps family members, extended family members of students, to your employees, to your contractors like the people who drive buses and so on. So in other words, all of this circumstance presents a very different set of duties that a school district has to attend to, not just those things that are articulated in the governor's guidelines and the CDC guidelines, but through a fairly normal tort analysis of what sort of duty does the school district have, and what are the consequences, what are the damages if the school district breaches that duty. So on the whole, when you look at the risks associated with leaving the schools closed, legal risks, and the legal risks of opening the schools, the risks of opening the schools are far greater than leaving them closed. So that's my conclusion, that if you do open the schools, I think you'd be facing a greater risk just from the legal standpoint.
Madam Chair, I'll take questions if there are any.
Would Mr. Felton weigh in before we entertain questions?
Sure, thank you. So my comments are going to be strictly from the public health perspective of what it means to restart in school. So first of all, as you all know, yesterday was day one of phase one, where churches could open. Today, a number of businesses opened. A week from now, bars and restaurants and other food service establishments will be open. They're all under constraints of volume and the number of people that can gather. But clearly, there are a lot more people who are out and about, even over the weekend. I've talked to a number of people who thought, boy, there's an awful lot of folks out compared to what we've seen. So one of the challenges is we've got a lot of things opening up at once. As we've talked about before, this disease is spread person to person. It's really by assembly. And it's going to be extremely difficult if we start getting more cases, as we frankly expect will happen, to track down where those cases really are coming from, because so many things are opening at once. Specifically with respect to kids, and I actually just had a very similar conversation with City Council regarding youth sports, but it's the same point. It is true that children are very unlikely to be diagnosed with COVID-19. I believe Governor Bullock in his press conference last week talked about only about a dozen people under the age of 18 have been diagnosed in the state. The problem really is we know that many people get mild disease, particularly those who are who don't have a lot of underlying disease, chronic disease, can get even asymptomatic disease. So the challenge is people that could be asymptomatic and be both infected and infectious. And so that's my big concern with children particularly, is they could be infected and infectious, and then they go and they go out to meals together with other people, or they see family members, and it could be a source of spread. Again, whenever you put more people together, the chance of spread expands dramatically. I think the other thing to think about from a pure public health perspective is this problem is not going to go away with the end of this academic year. It's going to be here when school starts next year, next fall. My feeling is, again, from a public health perspective, there's lots of issues to be solved, many of which Superintendent Upham touched on: transportation, meal service, scheduling, decompressing, things like lunchrooms. How do you manage the playground? All those are still going to be issues that are going to require changes in processes and procedures and practices. I will pledge without question that Riverstone Health and Public Health will work with the school district and the school staff to help address those issues. Given all the things that are going to be happening over the course of the next several weeks, my public health recommendation is that we work on those issues over the course of the summer. That rather than creating an additional risk of spread during the last few weeks of school, that we try and that we commit to coming up with solutions over the course of the summer for those types of things, which could be matters of scheduling. If we have in a school, if we have 2 lunch periods, maybe we need 4. Maybe that's how we decompress the lunchroom. But then that obviously has a lot of implications for how the rest of the school day schedule goes. The other thing that Superintendent Upham brought up that we would need to think through and plan is what happens if there is a case in a school. How do we manage the contact tracing, the identification of close contacts? How quickly do we move to identify who needs to be removed from the school? Again, all those things are likely to happen in the fall. It would just be really from a planning perspective. I think it'd be much more effective to try and plan those over the time when we don't have children in school. So I said last week that I can't offer you a good public health reason for reopening in school. I understand there are a lot of other reasons, and I completely understand those, and I'm not pretending to address the educational or some of the family social issues in it. Just from a public health perspective, I still cannot offer you a good, sound public health reason in terms of the spread of disease specifically to reopen the schools for in-school classes.
Thanks, John. You have truly been a friend to Billings Public Schools and a valuable resource. Thank you for your time and your commitment. We are certainly in your debt. I will now open it up to the school board for questions or comments. I am not seeing any hands or hearing any voices.
Madam Chair,
Mr. McCullough.
I'm just curious on a point of procedure. At what point are you going to entertain a motion on the issue?
I can entertain a motion at any time. Before we vote, we will hear from public comment.
Thank you.
Greta, Jana?
Ms. Hafer.
I've been reading all the emails and hearing, pros and the cons. And this is not an easy decision to make, but I just feel like we have no choice but to go with the recommendations from our superintendent and our health officer and keep the schools closed for the remainder of this year.
Thanks, Jana. Other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Tanya.
Okay, it's more like for Greg to answer this one. Okay, let's say because I've been hearing from parents too about they can't get their kids to do the work that they're getting. They're not motivated anymore. And I am one of those parents, but I do have other people that have expressed this to me as well. What's going to happen with their grades if they don't turn in that work? And are they going to be passed on to the next grade? That's what's concerning me.
I think that's a great question, Trustee Ludwig. We are having consistent conversations about how to identify proficiencies. If the student isn't meeting the proficiency, then we are looking at incompletes or not grading that information or that knowledge until we get into the live instruction parts and allowing that student to obtain the instruction that's needed so that they're not negatively impacted by a grade that they were not able to be taught effectively or had the opportunity for instruction that is more relevant for them. So when we look at moving into next year, the interesting part about this is what our principals are saying is the most effective means of instruction is going to be when we can have direct instruction again. And so what I'm directing our building administrators to do, especially with the grading part, is to just hold off on the grading just until we can get back in front of our students and find out just where they are. So there could be some blank grades. There could be some blank marks attached to different areas if the teacher feels that the student needs more time. And so we're positioned well to review that and not use any grading in a punitive manner that a student doesn't have the opportunity to have the appropriate or relevant instruction that helps them. So I like that. We all have to be adjustable and flexible with this time. So that's what we're looking at.
Did you have a follow-up, Tanya?
No.
No. Okay, any other
Good.
questions? Thanks, Tanya. Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
are you prepared to entertain a motion?
Let me just verify with Jeff Weldon the sequence, and then I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Mr. Weldon, Mike, can we entertain a motion and a second and then take public comment, or should I have public comment before the motion?
I think, in the normal sequence, it's a motion, a second, some board discussion if there's board discussion, but to take public comment before the board is finished with its deliberations. If you call for public comment while there's a motion on the floor, at least the public knows what the motion is that they can comment on. Obviously,
Right.
we've got a topic that, is large enough that people know what they can comment now, but I don't think taking a motion is out of order at this point.
Thank you. Mr. McCullough, you have the floor.
I move that the board declare an unforeseen emergency within the meaning of the term as set forth in Title 20, Chapter 9, Part 8, to become immediately effective and to continue through June 30, 2020. This motion is based on COVID-19 risks in recognition that the governor's waiver of student instruction time will expire on May 7th, and in recognition that the governor's April 22nd, 2020 directive implicating Executive Orders 2-2020 and 3-2020 specifies that elected school boards and their districts that adopt their own declaration of emergency will continue to receive all state funding, including transportation funding.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Russ Hall, and I'll open it for board discussion prior to going for public comment.
I'd like to speak to my motion, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I always wondered what it was going to be like to be between the devil and the deep blue sea, and I'm finding it a lot more uncomfortable than I like. The reality is, though, that we are in a pandemic. It is not business as usual. The havoc that this pandemic creates has left us with learning not happening because of circumstances this year. The havoc that this creates has left us with decisions that affect graduation and the reopening of schools. I do understand the soft opening for businesses because of the immense pressure on the economy, but it's no time to have an experiment in whether or not we can reopen a school in the middle of a pandemic and in fact allow our children into places where we could in fact create a second wave to that pandemic. I really appreciate your support on this, and I hope that we can find it in our hearts to think about the kids through this. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Any other comments? Questions? And I will turn to Craig Van Ice for public comment. And this is public comment related to school closure or opening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've asked Dr. Chris Rosevsky to help read these as well. For this particular section of the agenda, the public comments specifically on school closures, we have about 30 comments in total. And then near the end of the meeting, for general public comment, there's an additional 50 or so comments. So right now sitting close to about 80 total comments. So I'll go ahead and kick it off with the first comment related to school closures. This is from Rachel Shilref at 510 North 29th Street. Dear Billings Public School Trustees, Billings Education Association continues to appreciate the leadership you bring to our school district. Your communication efforts, recognition of our teachers' momentous work during school closure, and propensity for making informed, well thought out decisions has not gone unnoticed. We know that you will voluntarily serve our community, and we want to thank you for your continued service. You have before you a decision that no one wants to make. Our schools and our classrooms are the lifeline of our neighborhood and our city. We know that the majority of our students do better emotionally, socially, and intellectually in a classroom setting. Our teachers miss our students. We became teachers to watch the magic of learning happen each day, and that magic is lost a little in a virtual setting. Good things are still happening in our virtual classrooms, but the frustration of having to be distant from those we love and care for is real. The science and data in regards to this virus is very clear. Our community will stay healthier. Our loved ones will stay healthier if we continue to social distance and abide by the experts' opinions. Many of our teachers are immune compromised or have someone in their household who is immune compromised. They want to continue their work with their students to the best of their ability, but given the choice of health or a larger probability of exposure and sickness, we all know which one we would choose. The same is true for our students. This decision is difficult, but I feel the choice is clear. We need to proceed with caution. We need to continue to deliver instruction online for the rest of the year. We need to look at the next year and prepare ourselves for what may or may not occur during that year. I urge you to make Billings a leader in the state and to vote today to continue to keep our schools closed. Vote for the well-being and health of our teachers. Vote for the well-being and health of our students. Vote for Billings to continue to flatten the curve. Sincerely, Rachel Shilref, President of the BEA. Second comment is from Luke Hudson at 3785 Glantz Drive. Please consider reopening the schools in a safe and responsible manner. Please explore all options for how this might be accommodated. This reopening can offer closure for the staff and students to this difficult year they all have weathered. Please consider the transitions that occur at the end of the school year for students in all grades and how they might be able to say goodbye to their peers, teachers, and staff that they have developed relationships with throughout the year. There is good evidence that even a week of classes could go a long way emotionally to these students in their educational endeavors. Next comment is from Julie Wheatcroft at 3011 Golden Acres Drive. Given the current circumstances, it would be advantageous to cancel the school year early by 3 weeks and move up the start date 3 weeks of the 2020-2021 school year. The extra weeks in August could be used for intense review. Okay, I'll pass it on to Dr. Olszewski.
Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Next comment is from Amber Craig, 4529 Loma Vista Drive. Dear School Board, I'm a senior at West High. I would like to start out by saying thank you. Thank you for all that you are trying to do, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to reach out and express our thoughts and ideas. The thought of virtual graduation really saddens me. I, like many of my fellow peers, have been thinking about graduation for as long as I can remember. I've watched people in my life graduate, people on TV and in movies, and I'm ready to see myself and all of my fellow peers do the same. Although I know how dangerous COVID-19 is,
and I do not want to put anyone in harm's way, I do think that there are ways of going about public graduation in person. With stuff starting to open up around Billings, it gives me even more hope that appropriate graduation could be held. I have thought of two possible solutions. One, a graduation at the Metro like usual. The Metro is a big space, and I think that if you limit graduates to only guests that are immediate family, or even just 2 people per graduate, people could be spaced out enough to where all people would be safe. You could even space out the graduates, and why not make us wear masks and or gloves? If people are uncomfortable in attending, then they will not have to, and then they can tune in some sort of live stream where they will still hear their name being called. My second idea is outdoor graduation. Hold graduation at De La Stadium, follow the same rules that I said for the indoor one, but no, we are outdoors, making the situation safer. I'm unsure if these ideas would even work, but I know that so many people would be willing to make them work. People all around the Billings are supportive of the ideas and finding a way to give our class recognition that they deserve.
Hey, Chris, thank you for that public comment. As you are reading through the public comments, at this time, can you just bring forth the ones that have to do with opening, keeping the schools open or closing them? And we'll save the graduations ones till the end.
Sure.
Thank you.
The next one is Olga Pranther, 336 Clark Avenue, Billings. I know you all will do what is best, but I believe that we should finish the school year in virtual classroom. Next comment is Myra Baker, 2323 Miles Avenue. I'm extremely concerned with opening schools. The idea sounds great, but how many immunocompromised parents are there at home? It is imperative you think wisely before deciding to just throw caution to the wind, as well as how do we expect teachers to do live learning as well as distance learning and have a family life. My doctor, as well as her parents and doctors, and she cried in the office the other day because she was so upset that our hospitals won't be able to handle what is to come. If doctors are scared, then what do we as parents do? I am trusting in the board to make the right decision. Schools open and my husband with multiple sclerosis and myself, type 1 diabetic, become sick, who will care for our children? The principal? I want to be proud of this board, not ashamed of the negligence due to the lack of opinions of multiple doctors with specialized degrees. I beg of you to do the right thing. If not, it is the death toll on the board's hands. Just food for thought.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next comment is from Hillary Binstock at 339 Caravan Avenue. Comment is, I don't feel schools should go back to normal classroom instruction this year. There are so many uncertainties that come with reopening. I believe that the distance learning is working well for now. I think the schools can prepare for opening in the fall for regular class instruction. Okay, next comment. Erica Severson at 2405 Greenbrier Road. I think that schools shouldn't reopen. Going to one of the high schools, it is near to impossible to social distance. Even if we stay in one classroom with teachers rotating, I will be in class with up to 30 kids who all have their own families, who have jobs and go out. That is way more risky than it is worth right now. And I'm a senior and miss school. As a senior, I also think we need to have a virtual graduation on May 24th, as well as one in the summer as a ceremony if possible, such as using a stadium parade, etc. Sending us back to school would be careless in my opinion, plus we only have 3 weeks left. Not enough time to figure out our schedules and properly keep the school clean. I do offer the idea of doing a drive-through for seniors to go to the school and to get to drive through the parking lot and see their teachers and staff one last time. And the next comment is from Tawana Francis at 1636 Elaine Street. Fellow chairperson and board of trustees, please keep the schools closed for the remainder of this school year for the safety of the students, staff, teachers, and custodians. Thank you. Next comment is from Megan Heenan at 2325 38th Street West. Thank you to all the trustees. This is a trying time, and we are looking to you for guidance and to protect our SD2 students. With that in mind, I see no possible scenario in which our schools are prepared to open their doors on May 8th to students. It is impossible to follow phase 1 guidelines in our current classroom. Our teachers have gone above and beyond in the transition from regular classroom teaching to online teaching. Please allow our current online model to continue for the final 3 weeks of school and keep our kids safe. Okay, next one is Heather Ailey at 3224 Horton Smith Lane. Good evening. Our children have 2 forms of health, physical and mental. The data tells us that the risk to a child's physical health is minor with COVID-19. However, having their educational world ripped out from underneath them is doing great harm to their mental health, especially in SD2 where school is the only stability many children have ever known. Please give our children in SD2 the opportunity for closure by allowing educators the ability to use their creative gifts to come up with a safe plan to open schools and give parents the power to choose if it is best for their child's overall health to send them back to school or continue distance learning. This does not have to be an either or outcome. Thank you. Okay. On to you, Chris.
Okay. Next comment that I have, Darcy Strack at 5619 Mountain Front. I would highly recommend canceling school year for the rest of the year. The safety of our children and our community needs to be our #1 priority. The risk of students being a carrier or even becoming sick with COVID and bringing it home to their families is too high. I'm a small business owner, and I know as well that many lawsuits could occur if a child becomes sick or severely ill and brings the virus home to their families. Also recently, through the most recent cases in Montana, 2 children in the age bracket of 10 through 19. This is some information that you should consider when making your final decision. Next comment is from Chris and Gary Barnes at 1119 El Rancho Drive. If the school board decides to reopen the schools, then how are you going to protect the students and faculty from exposure? How is the school district going to manage anxiety and fear when they put a lot of kids in a small confined area? We support our outdoor graduation. Please allow the seniors to experience the milestone in their lives. And then Ronnie Stevens, 821 North 27th Street West. I believe students should go back to school if their parents allow them. What plans does the school district have in place if students should return? Back to you, Craig.
Okay. All right, so next one I have here from Austin Swenson at 852 Park Hill Drive. Until scientists and physicians fully understand COVID-19, the only responsible thing we can do as parents is to keep our children home to help prevent infection. It's as simple as that. There's too much information available, and a lot of that information is not based on reality, common sense, or most importantly, the scientific method. Until we have adequate testing resources and tracing programs available, putting our children's lives at risk by opening the schools for the remaining weeks of the 2020 school year is completely unnecessary. Next comment is from Lee Geip at 435 Boca Raton. I am a healthcare provider who cares for the most vulnerable population. I am also the mother of a graduating senior who has had to miss out on many milestones this year. As you probably know, information about COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus changes rapidly, and more information is gathered every day. We're not sure about many things regarding this virus. One thing that stands out to me has been consistent throughout this pandemic is that it is highly contagious, especially in large gatherings where people are in close contact. Another thing that has been made very clear is that some of the information provided to the public by politicians and other sources has been grossly inaccurate. I urge you to please make your decision regarding graduation based on recommendations put forth by healthcare professionals, scientists, the CDC, World Health Organization, Yellowstone County, public health professionals, and not from politicians or other sources. Please make your decision based on the best scientific evidence available. Currently, the recommendations from Riverstone Health and the CDC is to maintain 6 feet distance from other people and to avoid large gatherings. Please ensure to keep our children, families, and communities safe by ensuring we follow these guidelines. Thank you. And next is a comment from Joey Buckley at 1101 19th Street West. Please don't reopen school this year. I am a school bus driver, and there is no way to safely social distance on a school bus with 50 kids. I'll turn it back over to you, Chris.
Next comment, Tari Urfel at 1138 Anchor Avenue. Please consider the students' health and do not send them back to the school this year. Also, please consider their mental health and make a decision on whether or not to continue distance learning or end the school year. Dragging this out is causing a lot of unneeded anxiety on top of the already stressful time. Next comment is Marie Elwood, 1304 North Church Street, Billings. Please let our schools go back, our kids go back to school. Next comment, Jen Schneider, 5509 Sunny Cove. I request that we allow children to return to school. Social distancing within a class of students who have been together for 7 months and already share a microbiome is not unlike kids in a daycare setting. It is unnecessary. Teaching our children social and wellness responsibilities inside the classroom, like hand washing and covering coughs and sneezes, should not be alarming and could be very valuable for the most resilient population to this virus. That being said, the choice should be families concerning returning to school, considering the caretaker could be vulnerable. As parents need to return to work and provide income for their families, finding childcare will be impossible, and children in unstable homes need to be seen by trusted adults. School is important for vulnerable children. I also feel strongly that remote learning should be discontinued for elementary students, regardless of the decision about in-classroom learning, as it is a monumental amount of work for teachers and is ineffective for this age group. This could be a great experience for determining what works and what doesn't in the case that we aren't in phase 3 by fall. And Kennedy, next comment, Kennedy Prather, 5619 Mountain Front. I'm a freshman at West High School. And as much as everybody want to see my friends, but I know I can't social distance at school. It is impossible. I don't want to get my new baby brother or my grandparents sick. Please keep school closed and online learning continued. One more, Craig, Ashley Kunza at 303 Wyoming Avenue. As an educator, I recognize the great importance of face-to-face instruction and students' engagement with their peers. That said, the novel coronavirus has already caused immense disruption in our children's schooling for this year, and we, the families, have finally settled into something of a pattern at home. Returning to in-person instruction for the final 3 weeks will not do anything but create still more disruption and discontinuity while placing our most precious resource, our children, at unnecessary risk. As public health officials have learned more and more about this virus, we have discovered that children are not as low risk as originally thought. What's more, each child who is exposed to the virus comes into contact with any number of other children and adults who are at a potential greater risk of illness. As a parent of an asthmatic child and a premature infant, I can say with certainty that I will not be sending my son back to Broadwater this academic year, regardless of what the school board decides. I have sympathy for the portion of parents who look to the school as a source of childcare as they return to jobs that have been hampered by the economic difficulties of the past weeks. But economics cannot trump our children's. Back to you, Craig.
Chris, do you mind just reading those 73 through 75 as well?
Sure, okay. Next one is Sophia Swan, 313 Nesting Place. I'm a student at Billings West High School, and I personally do not think that it is safe to go back to school, and that stinks, but I just don't feel comfortable with it. So Sophia continues, if school opens back up, there will be students who end up not going and parents who don't want them to go back. How would those students continue their education for the 1920 school year? Next comment is Ashley Satrome, 814 Mossman Drive. If the board votes to resume in school this school year, will families have the option to keep their students at home, continuing remote learning, possibly with Zoom meetings of lessons of those in classroom? Okay, Craig.
Okay. Next comment from Bree Fulton at 1400 Easy Street. My question is, if schools do open back up and I still keep my immunocompromised child home, can she continue her online learning, or would she be made to take the 4th grade over again? Next is from Megan Cedar at 2109 Maricela Street. I'm a mom to a 9-year-old boy who loves school and also has ADHD, but he also has a sister with a severe autoimmune disease. Please do not reopen the schools for her and everyone else's safety. Next comment from Brittany John at 2323 32nd Street West. I would like to recommend to leave the schools closed. Okay, Chris?
Okay. Next comment, Juanita Roach at 1124 Avenue F. I have 3 elementary age children. I would love for them to be able to go back to school on some sort of modified schedule that will allow them to maintain social distancing. I only ask that they all go at the same day at the same times. If they do not go back to school, please give me the tools to see the whole picture for my children so I can try to get them where they need to be. All of my children struggle with the distance learning. They do better with paper pencil. Next comment, Kimberly Sims at 2112 Dahlia Lane. I think the students should go back to school. If they don't, teachers need to ease up on the workload. Next comment, Aaron Hofer, 2101 Columbine Drive. I support finishing the school year remotely.
Okay. Next comment is from Tanya Long at 737 South Billings Boulevard. I have 3 children in 2 different schools here in Billings. I don't see how the students and teachers can safely complete social distancing. My 11-year-old has 26 students in her class. How would that work? Please don't send the students back to school. Okay, the next comment is from Cindy Stubbs at 2115 Meadowwood. Please do not reopen school. Let's keep our kids and teachers safe. Next comment from Johnny McCluskey at 3144 Avamore Court. Thank you for taking my comments. Are you considering the impact to the students who are living in motels as well as those who are without internet access? What do you expect that impact to be? How will all of the students' grading be measured? Next comment is from Jake Blackburn at 1820 9th Street West. We appreciate the work everyone is putting into our children's education. We have 3 kiddos that look forward to school every day. It's unfortunate, but there is no good manner in continuing with school except maybe online schooling. There is both good and bad in every scenario, but the unfortunate reality is the bad is outweighing the good. I believe we should close the schools for the remainder of the year to prevent an exponentially longer pandemic. We need this to pass and gain normalcy again. Thank you again.
Okay, next comment is Elijah Madland at 2314 Yellowstone. I would like to know what some of the teenagers are supposed to do. I'm 16, I work not only 1 but 2 full-time jobs to help pay for things. And when I'm not doing that, I'm helping my family with the little children around the house. I have little to no free time, and if I do after all day working and helping, I have no motivation to do anything, and my grades are sure showing it. I understand this is a personal responsibility, but how many adults work 2 jobs, help with the small children, and then are expected to do schoolwork? Now you're right, I could force myself to, and I will, but it will make my life absolute hell. I am not doing well with this whole thing. I understand school is a priority, but with everything going on, it's hard to make it one. So what exactly do us kids who have to have a work life do? It's enough to drive someone to a mental breakdown. Next comment, Emma Ament at 719 Anchor Avenue, number 7. Hello, I'm a senior at Skyview, and if the school board does close schools, students, especially the seniors, should be able to say goodbye to their teachers and peers. Students should be able to say goodbye to everyone and not just be thrown into the world without any goodbye. Next comment, Lynette Fisher, 436 Glee Plaza. Thank you, members of the board, for your willingness to serve. You have before you an immensely hard decision. While I recognize the struggles of and sympathize with the children and families of School District 2, I would urge that you please keep the schools closed and create well thought out policies and procedures over the summer that allow for a safe return of our children. Thank you.
Okay. 4 more on this topic. They continue to come in, but let's see. This one's from Devin Despain at 4201 Trotter Lane. My suggestion is to close out the school year on May 15th and begin school year 2020-2021 2 weeks early. Thank you. Next comment, Amanda Green at 2226 West Skokie Drive. I would recommend we consider options that completely end school now instead of waiting until the end of May, with options for those kids who have already met proficiencies for their grade level. Many parents are working full-time, taking care of kids, maintaining households, and dealing with additional stressors amidst the pandemic. For those that have not met these, there could be other options for an early start or continued online education throughout the summer. It is my opinion that the self-learning for kids has become too much of a challenge for working parents, children that need additional assistance, or those who struggle with the daily motivation. There are options for continued socializing via technology if that is of concern. Okay, next comment from Raquel Desjardins at 1361 Easy Street. If we go back to school, a lot of parents won't let their kids go back. The next comment from Christina Shy at 3814 Park Hill Drive. I'm the mother of a graduating senior. I don't believe school should open in general, but I do strongly think something needs to be done for graduating seniors. They need to have some sort of closure, and there are unconventional ways to ensure that they get a live in-person graduation. Schools also need to have a better plan for students with special needs, who I suspect are being left behind and left out of online learning. It's time to think outside the box and do what is safe while ensuring all kids are being honored and thought of. Take a look at what the Catholic schools are doing for their kids, grades 5 through 12. It is working great. We just had a couple more I'm screening right now, Madam Chair. Okay, 2 more comments that came in related to the closure. The first is from Kyra B, no last name given. I'll go ahead and read the comment. At 1820 9th Street West. I would like to go back to school to increase our learning and to make sure we are prepared for the upcoming year in our curriculums. And final comment here, Raquel Desjardins at 1361 Easy Street. I'm a sophomore at Skyview, and if school doesn't go back, a lot of people won't go back. And I think you need to talk to teachers again and let them to know to stop putting grades in as zeros. And that's it for public comment on the question of reopening schools, Madam Chair.
Thank you to both Craig and to Chris for reading all of those public comments. Heartfelt comments, heartfelt concerns, respectfully written. We as a board appreciate them. We appreciate hearing from our community. I want to thank Greg, Superintendent Upham, for the investigative work that he has done, for the work that he has done, the thorough analysis of this issue within School District 2, including the valuable insight that we have from Mr. John Felton, our Yellowstone County Health Officer. With that, I will open the board for any further discussion before we take a vote on the motion to close schools. Are there additional comments?
I have a comment, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hall.
Regarding students and the difficulty of, continuing online education. I know it's tough. It's a challenge. I've got 2 kids in School District 2. I've got 1 child that is at University of Montana and doing the online. It's all online, and it's challenging. The motivational speech I gave to my freshmen in college, I think applies to everyone. For the first time in your life, and possibly the only time in your life as a student, you have the option to choose when you go to school and for how long you study. It's not, foisted upon you. And so my counsel is to set a time. If you want to get up early and take care of your schoolwork, that's wonderful. If you want to take care of your schoolwork, in different chunks of the day, that's wonderful. I'd strongly encourage you to, if you don't already have a schedule, to set scheduled times, put it on your calendar, put it somewhere written. because this really is an opportunity to do that. As in, as undesirable as it is, there is a way to make this a positive, because we are given what we are given. I'm thinking about it on the spectrum of choices or of options, and on the spectrum of undesirable, we all understand that it falls from really undesirable to making the best of the situation. And I'm really proud of everyone that is doing the best in this situation. From primarily the students are what I'm concerned about, but our administrators, our staff, everyone involved is doing the best that they can. And so I just appreciate that. I can fully appreciate everyone's concerns. And I just urge any student that's watching this, if you are struggling, reach out to your teachers, reach out to your administrators. Everybody wants you to be successful and to succeed. So that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Russ. Any other comments? No, who is that, please?
Joe.
Okay, Mr. Raffiani.
I just feel like this is a rather significant vote. Not that there aren't other significant votes, but one of sort of even historic purpose or intent. And I want to take a minute to explain at least some of my thought processes, so that people who never voted for me, but whom I represent, and people who may want to have a conversation about how I voted at some point in the future. I hope I've done as good of a job as I'd like to think that I do when I try to educate myself on any other topic about which we as a board have to act. And I know that everyone else makes a good faith effort to do so as well. And I just want to make it clear to the community that we are weighing as many different elements in this decision-making process as we can. Of course, we're relying on individuals that have been empowered to help educate us and the rest of the community, like John Felton, people that we have delegated our trust and the responsibility to run the entire district, like our superintendent, Upham. I mean, these are folks who in turn then are communicating with the health board and Riverstone Health and other community members who bring all their professional experience. I mean, the volume of knowledge and wisdom and information that has been brought to bear through those individuals is incalculable. Every trustee has their own life story, has other people that they know that have life stories that have with whom they've been communicating through this. And so I have people who work for me, who have children who are in school, and they all have their life stories that they've shared with me. I don't dare say I know everything that is at issue right now for everyone. And it is probably almost too glib to say, but there is no good right answer for all those variables, for all the people that the decision we're being asked to make will touch upon. But we, I think collectively have done the best job that we can, and trying to learn what all those variables are, or as many of them as we can, what the options are for those. And I mean, I could sit here and say the specifics of my life and my wife and my children and the people that we know, but they're just going to be echoed by other people as well. And I just want people to understand that I don't think there is a really good argument one way or the other that we're just unaware of. So there just isn't also a good right answer. There seems to be a least worst answer. And it is balancing all those things with what I can know that I will be voting the way that I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Are there any other trustees that would like to make a comment?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Leo.
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge and appreciate all the folks who wrote in with public comment. It's a extremely difficult choice, and the sort of rough balance was about 10-1 against reopening schools for not only safety issues, but the basic logistics of being able to do so within the parameters set by our county public health officer just makes it unworkable. And just as a point of information, we're not voting here to close schools, as you said. We are voting here on the declaration of a public emergency that allows us to go forward in the most workable fashion we can. We all want schools to reopen. We all want to go back to normal. But given the circumstances, I appreciate Trustee McCullough's motion, and I intend to support it.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments? Any other comments? We have a very dedicated and deliberative board, and over the years I have seen them make their decisions based on data. And I think that's what our board members are doing tonight for the health and safety of our students, for the health and safety of our staff, and for the health and safety of our community. And with that, I will call for a roll call vote. Joe Raffiani. Mr. Raffiani. Mr. Raffiani, aye. Jana Hafer.
Aye.
Michael Leo.
Aye.
Russ Hall.
Aye.
Jen Hoffman.
Aye.
Tanya Ludwig.
Aye.
Scott McCullough.
Aye.
Ryan Yates. Mr. Yates.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. It's a unanimous decision. Very, very tough decision, but a unanimous decision by the board to not reopen our schools, but to continue distance learning through the rest of the school year, having declared an emergency for full funding. And with that, I will move us on to the next agenda item, which is the COVID available resources. And we provide this information during most of our special board meetings. And again, I recommend going to the Billings Public Schools website. There's Billings Public School COVID-19 updates. You also have an opportunity to subscribe to the superintendent's newsletter. He has also graciously been on Facebook Live Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 1 o'clock or so, taking questions that are coming, scrolling across the live feed. The Office of Public Instruction has information on their website at opi.mt.gov. They also have a direct email address if you have specific questions of the Office of Public Instruction and COVID-19. MTPEC, who's our education consortium, also has information on their website, which is mt-pec.org. And locally, Riverstone Health has a COVID site at riverstonehealth.org. Statewide, Department of Health and Human Services, Montana Department of Health and Human Services has information on their website. And then nationally, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention includes information on COVID-19 at cdc.gov. So that's presented again for information only. And as I return to the agenda, the last item prior to continuance of this meeting is continuation from the public. Appreciate again the heartfelt and respectful comments that we're getting, and know that we hear them, we're listening to you. We cannot respond, but we have them for the record. And with that, I will turn it over to Craig Van Ice.
Thanks again, Madam Chair. Yeah, so for general public comment, there's another about 50 comments that have come in. So Dr. Olszewski and I will take turns reading these as well. I did just turn off the public submission form now that we're at the public comment section. So that is now off and there won't be any more submitted. So the first comment is from Wesley Keeley at 2525 Park Ridge Lane. As a father of a graduating senior, I urge you to consider nothing less than a live in-person graduation ceremony for the class of 2020. These kids have worked extremely hard for the last 12 years and need to be able to be rewarded for their accomplishments. There are ways to satisfy all safety concerns and still have an appropriate graduation for our seniors. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Next is from Mary Keeley at 2525 Park Ridge Lane North. This is a repeat of what Dr. Olszewski was reading earlier, so I'll just give it a full reread here. Dear School Board 2 Board of Trustees, first and foremost, thank you for your service to our students in our community. As fellow community members, I ask that we collectively come together to find and approve a creative solution to give the senior class of 2020 the graduation ceremony they deserve while continuing to observe the necessary guidelines to ensure the safety of the graduates, their families, and the faculty members. I would like to present the following solution as one option to a safe graduation ceremony. With the approval of the county commissioners, please consider the option to hold 3 graduation ceremonies on separate days during Memorial Day weekend, allowing the Metro adequate time to sanitize the area after each ceremony. Upon arriving at the Metro, parent volunteers would take the temperature of graduates and family members attending the ceremony. The students would be placed in pods of 10 each, 6 feet apart in a lineup, and on the floor of the Metro. Families of graduating seniors would be limited to a predetermined number, either 2 to 4 folks, and would sit in designated seats 6 feet apart. Seats would be marked with a sticker showing where families would be safe to sit in order to expedite and organize the seating process. Graduates and family would be required to exit the building by sections immediately after the ceremony. In order to attend the graduation ceremony, each student would either need parental or guardian approval, effectively releasing the district of any liability associated with contracting COVID-19. I know that I am not alone in offering to personally provide support, both of my time and resources where possible, to provide this group of students the ceremony that they've been working toward for the past 12 years as a part of this school district. I believe that recognizing our graduates on a computer screen through virtual graduation is not an adequate form of celebrating their success, and I strongly believe we can come to a solution if we work together. I ask you to please give our students the graduation ceremony they deserve by allowing them to receive their diploma in front of the entire class of 2020. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration. Okay. Next comment is from Amber Craig at 4529 Loma Vista Drive. Dear School Board, I'm a senior at West High and would like to start out by saying thank you. Thank you for all that you are trying to do, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to reach out and express our thoughts and ideas. The thought of virtual graduation really saddens me. I, like many of my fellow peers, have been thinking about graduation for as long as I can remember. I've watched people in my life graduate, people on TV and in movies, and I am ready to see myself and all of my fellow peers do the same. Although I know how dangerous COVID-19 is, I do not want to put anyone in harm's way. I do think there are ways of going about public graduation in person. With stuff starting to open up around buildings, it gives me even more hope that appropriate graduation could be held. I've thought of 2 possible solutions. One, a graduation at the Metro like usual. The Metro is a big space, and I think that if you limit graduates to only guests that are immediate family or even just 2 people per graduate, people could be spaced out enough to where all people would be safe. You could even space out the graduates, and why not make us wear masks and or gloves? If people are uncomfortable in attending, then they will not have to, and they can tune into some sort of live stream where they will still hear their name being called. My second idea is outdoor graduation. Hold graduation at Dallas Stadium. Follow the same rules that I said for the indoor one, but know we are outdoors, making the situation safer. I am unsure if these ideas would even work, but I know that so many people would be willing to make them work. People all around buildings are supporting ideas of finding a way to give our class the recognition that we deserve. If I can go out to a store and touch places that most of the people in buildings are also coming in contact with, I should be able to walk across a stage of some sort to be honored for the hard work I've put in these past 12 years. Please try to put yourself in our shoes and fight for our chance to have a graduation. We all went to our last day of high school thinking that we would return on Monday. We all saw people for probably the last time we ever will without even knowing it. I understand that COVID-19 is dangerous, and I am not in any way doing this because I am selfish. I'm doing this because I know that I and all of my peers around me deserve recognition for all the nights spent on homework, all of the hours studying, the hundreds of pages written for essays, and everything else we have worked hard for. Okay, on to you, Chris.
Yep. Next comment is from Brad Puckett, 2107 38th Street, Billings. Hello, I'm a parent of a high school senior at West High. I am concerned about the decision about the student's graduation. My daughter has cried many times in the last few weeks over the prospect of having no graduation and has worked so hard to be able to walk across the stage and feel the sense of accomplishment for all of her hard work. Taking away graduation from these students would be a travesty. I am not talking about a virtual graduation because that is not a graduation. A graduation is the students walking across the stage in their caps and gowns, receiving their diplomas as a graduating class. I know there has been talk about holding a graduation ceremony at Dalis Stadium. I see that as a perfect way to celebrate the seniors, but still keeping the community safe. If social distancing is still in effect, then require the students to not throw their caps and that they are to refrain from hugging, etc. Limit attendance of the crowd to immediate family guardians only. I'm the father of 4 children in School District 2 and with 3 more still in school after my eldest daughter leaves. I hope they all get the experience and the thrill of graduating and walking with their friends from childhood. This is not a lifetime moment. This is not a lifetime moment that you experience through a slideshow in your own homes. It is something you live. Taking away graduation is taking away our children's childhood. They have lost most of their senior year already and have only a short time before they step out in the world on their own. Please give them a chance to have the finale to their childhood. Best regards. The next one from Sue Laughlin, 5633 Sweetgrass Creek Drive. It is with respect and appreciation for the difficult decision you are forced to make that I offer my opinion. As a mom of a 2020 senior, I have watched my outgoing, driven, and motivated son slowly but surely become withdrawn, sad, and depressed. He left school on a Thursday to go watch his classmates play in the state basketball tournament, never to return to school as a student. He has been kept away from his friends as they have been kept away from him. He has lost his senior prom, his senior spring break trip to Mexico, time with instructors as he finishes his schooling at SD2, spring sports, likely most, if not all of the baseball season, precious time with friends who will be blown into the winds as soon as they are allowed out of quarantine. For those of us who got to experience them, these are some of the most memorable moments of school in your childhood. I beg you, please allow these students the last thing they can have as school children, a graduation ceremony. They have worked hard with grace, continued school remotely, turn in work, and have not complained about losing their senior year. Many now don't even know for sure what will be happening this fall. Life plans that were a source of excitement and happiness are also now in doubt of happening, again, through no fault of their own. Billings has opportunities for a graduation ceremony that, while different, could certainly happen and accommodate health restrictions and concerns. Metro Park would certainly accommodate a large crowd and whole class of students still allowing for social distancing. Dalis could be used as an outdoor venue, even Daler Park. If necessary, classes could be split into smaller groups and run mini ceremonies, but still allow students to walk in cap and gown with family in attendance. Ceremonies don't need to happen May 24th. They can wait until June if needed. The all-night parties at each school are also dependent on graduations happening and would be especially poignant and earned this year for these students. After everything this class has been through, a virtual ceremony would almost be the final straw. Graduation is always a final hurrah, final goodbye. These kids deserve it, and there are ways to make it happen for them. Thank you. Next comment, Grant Minkoff, 3517 Terry Avenue. Will there be an alternative way that finals are taken other than the traditional manner? If school is to resume, what measures will be taken to ensure the health of students and staff?
Okay. Next comment is from Jennifer Sanchez at 6093 Ironwood Drive. Comment is, I am totally in favor of doing an outdoor graduation ceremony for West High School. An outdoor stadium would work great. Next comment from Tina McDonough at 3034th Street West, apartment 104. What do we do with our kids' school supplies that are left at the school? Next comment from Melissa Hernandez at 1648 Touchstone. Dear Mr. Uppelman School Board members, I'm writing you today in hopes that you will read this and take into consideration of postponing graduation instead of canceling it. I know that there has been some talk about a virtual graduation, but I, along with many other parents with the 2020 seniors, strongly feel this is not an option. Our seniors have been working very hard for the past 13 years, and they deserve that moment to sit with their fellow classmates and walk across that stage in front of their loved ones and get that well-earned diploma. My daughter, Rinzi Hernandez, is a senior at West High and is graduating with high honors. She, along with her classmates, deserve a graduation ceremony. I know her biggest fear right now is not being able to graduate with her classmates. I'm just asking to please consider postponing graduation to a later date in hopes that this pandemic will be cleared and we can all have the opportunity to watch our kids graduate together. The class of 2020 deserves to walk. Thank you for your time. Stay safe and healthy. Sincerely, Melissa Hernandez, the proud mom of a 2020 graduate.
Next comment from Malachi Riddle, 1315 Governor's Boulevard. If school is closed for the rest of the year, what are we going to do about finals in about 4 weeks? Next comment submitted, Myra Baker, 2323 Miles Avenue, was interested in how to access watching the meeting. Next comment, Jennifer Stanton, 1061 Strawberry Avenue. If you are taking comments from students regarding graduation options, I'm speaking on behalf of my son, a senior at Skyview. His opinion is that he would either like to see a traditional with approved social distancing graduation later in the summer, or an open air graduation near the time of the original graduation date with approved social distancing.
Okay, next is Jennifer Guston at 3113 Stillwater Drive. There's no way that the virtual graduation is fair to the class of 2020. They worked so hard for so long and deserve better than to have their names read over the internet with their picture flashed on the screen. We could hold it outside at each school, break it up based on the dean's alphabet system in 3 parts, and allow only the parents and siblings, limit that if necessary. These young people deserve better. We can do better for them. Next is from Sarah Reinsma at 325 Delta Circle. I have a senior this year at West, and she has lost so many of the things she was looking forward to this year. Please do not add graduation to the list. We have options and time to look at a way to try and give this class a graduation that is not virtual. And then from Joe Lester at 3264 Tahoe Drive, please allow graduation ceremonies for our seniors. I'd suggest outdoors at Dallas if there remains too much concern with the Metra. An additional option would be to only allow immediate family or 2 per senior. Sincerely, Joe Lester.
Next comment is from Laurel Gagnon, 2315 Stone Creek Trail. In regards to graduation, I strongly believe these seniors need to graduate all together with all their classmates that choose to participate, and with the guidelines for social distancing given by the CDC. This is an event they have looked forward to their whole lives, and it can be done safely at the Metra with social distancing. Here are my thoughts on how to make this work. 1, face the graduates long ways on the floor in rows of 10 with 6 feet in between each row. They approach the stage with 6 feet of distance. 2, limit the family members to either 4 or 2, if need be, to allow for social distancing in the audience. 3, have every family in attendance sign a waiver before or as they enter. 4, take the kids' temps on their way in if need be. 5, spread the graduation out further throughout the day to allow for cleaning, or spread the graduation over 3 days. I realize this may be too expensive. If cleaning is too expensive, ask for volunteers. You'll get them for sure. 6, if 500 graduates and staff attend and 420 kids each have 4 people in attendance, this makes for 2,100 in attendance. Metra has capacity for 12,000. 7, you have been given permission by the governor to make this happen if you choose to. This is a one-time thing. Please let our 2020 graduates walk. The next comment, Callie Retzma at 325 Delta Circle. As a senior, I've always aspired that one day walk across the stage and get my diploma. This is never what I wanted. I think there are multiple different ways we can look at it, but I think the best way is to give us a graduation somehow. It may not be huge, but I do think virtual is not the way to go. And there are many more who I think believe the same thing. I think that Deller Park would be an awesome choice. Some say, what if it rains? I say that we still do it. These past couple of months have been stormy, so let us do it outside and let it be a time to remember. Next comment, Lisa Woods, 1430 Park Hill Drive. Curious about the grading and how that works. The students that are working hard and making sure to attend every Zoom meeting and getting all their work done and turned in, how is that getting graded versus kids that are not attending and doing the work? I would assume that grades are grades. That if you are attending and getting work done and turn it in, that it will actually be counted versus just giving everyone a good grade or excluding work because of everything going on. It is not fair to the kids that are actually doing the work versus the ones that have gone on summer break early and don't care.
Okay, next up is from Catherine Puckett at 2107 38th Street West. Good evening. I appreciate the tremendous pressure on you during these unprecedented and uncertain times. Everyone has an opinion, and it seems no matter what decision you make, there will be those who say it is completely wrong. I am a mother of 4 children who attend school here in District 2. I'm writing on behalf of my oldest daughter who is a senior this year. I'm asking the school board and Mr. Upham and Mr. Hornby to please consider the following as possible solution to graduation for our seniors so that they can finish their years in the Billings schools, say goodbye to their childhood friends and the teachers who have poured so much into their lives. Please allow an outdoor graduation that could be held at Dallas Stadium or an open space, perhaps at the end of May or the first week of June if needed. Only immediate family could attend or just the seniors themselves. Everyone could spread out 6 feet and wear gloves and masks if needed. The graduates who are at high risk could come at an earlier appointed time and walk across the stage while having it filmed. Then the graduation ceremony for the class could take place later that day. The students who were at risk could still be conferenced in and their walk across the stage could be shown on the screen when it is their turn for their name to be called. This way they would still be at their ceremony virtually, but have had a physical presence as well. I believe people in this community care enough to follow whatever rules you would set, just to have the opportunity to give these kids their graduation after all these years of hard work. I also believe that this class is special and would follow whatever rules you put in place in order to have their graduation. Please speak to the teachers who have taught these kids for the past 12 years. They will tell you that this is a very special class who have often been more mature and responsible than other classes they have had. Additionally, is there any chance that these seniors could at least go back to their high school for even one day at their high schools? These kids have looked forward to this time in their lives for most of their lives, and it all suddenly ended with the governor's order one Friday afternoon with no warning for a lot of them. I'm not criticizing the governor's order. I believe he made a wise choice, but I'm begging you to think outside the box and find a way to at least let these seniors finish strong instead of going out into life feeling like their senior year just fizzled out. Let them have one more opportunity to walk the halls of their school as a bear, falcon, or bronc, see their friends, and have that closure. Thank you for your attention. The next comment from Amanda King at 81 Astor Circle. As a senior, I am fully for returning to school no matter how it looks. Not only do I believe we deserve the proper send-off, but so do all of the retiring staff. Over the last month, I feel as though my learning was halted through the remote learning. If the school board sees no use in going back to school for 2 weeks, then I would have to argue that there would be no use for ever going back to school. Nothing can compare to being in a classroom surrounded by your classmates. After talking with many of my friends, I have come to conclude that no one would be satisfied with a virtual graduation. To work hard for 13 years just to have your name read on TV does not seem to do any justice. I also know that pushing it back would not be a fair option, as many students are off to the military or other places as soon as school gets out. Before voting, please consider what these last 2 weeks of high school mean to us students. Okay, next comment, Jake Johnson at 5211 Helmway. How much money has the district saved during this? Will this help save some of the positions that you planned on cutting? You are saving money on electricity, water, and many other ways. What are your plans for that increase of funds? You will need all the extra support in the jobs you planned on cutting in the programs.
Next comment is from Nancy King at 81 Astor Circle. Thank you for offering a forum where folks can submit their input regarding graduation. As a parent of a high school senior, this current situation has caused considerable heartbreak. As an adult, I understand the need for safety at all costs. Therefore, I am asking for a decision to be made as soon as possible. These kids need something to look forward to. my dream scenario for Skyview would be an automobile parade down Wicks in Maine, perhaps ending in the Metro parking lot, where a ceremony can be presented with speeches given and names read. This can be a simulcast on TV for those at home, as well as radio stations for those in their vehicles at the event. Next comment is Hillary Neary, 1280 Cottonwood. I'm writing to the board tonight as the mother of a senior. I'm well aware of all of the rules and regulations set forth by the governor. They are not totally clear to me, as it seems some rules apply to certain situations and not in others. For instance, I am allowed to go to church with my family and sit 6 feet apart from others. However, we are not allowed to gather in groups of 10 or more. Confusing. The last thing I want is to endanger our kids by having some sort of graduation ceremony. I do think that we need to try everything possible in order to make it happen for them. They deserve it. A lot can happen in 4 weeks. The students do not want a virtual graduation. They want closure. They deserve closure. They deserve to be celebrated. I'm asking you to put your heads together and think outside the box. How can we make this happen for our kids safely? Please do not give up on them. Next comment, Heather Kimball, 4458 Loma Vista Drive. Please consider all the memories that have already been taken away from class of 2020. Our family would like to see our senior take her well-earned walk. I understand that new precautions will have to be taken. Graduation outside spread across 3 days for the 3 different schools. Only 2 observers willing to wear masks. Stream for those not able or comfortable to come. I know we can find junior parents to volunteer to help. Seniors walk 6 feet apart, move their own tassel, and follow any other precautions necessary. Thank you for your time. Please think outside the box.
The next comment is from Jim Keller at 6236 Greyhawk Way. I sent an email earlier to the board that has data and facts. The bottom line is kids need school, and a graduation the traditional way is a must. In all of history, we have always quarantined the sick, not the healthy. The transmission is proving to be from adult to kid, not the other way around. Sure, COVID is contagious, but what is coming to light is the seriousness of it. It is proving to be less harmful than first thought. The kids need school, the seniors especially. They have had so much taken from them already. Yes, even a week of school would suffice for them. Graduation is once in a lifetime experience they work so hard for. Please don't take that away as well. Find a way, even if it's outside, live streamed for family, etc., with students and faculty present at the ceremony. There are no do-overs. It's sad to me so many in power have given up so soon. Please try for every senior out there. You all experience graduation. Please don't take this away as well. Driving by Home Depot and Lowe's today, there are more people there than at a graduation, it appears. If church, baseball, Little League, NBA can all figure it out, I'm hopeful we can also. Next comment from Kim Craig at 4529 Loma Vista Drive. Please consider having an outdoor in-person ceremony for the class of 2020. These kids have endured many disappointments, and being able to celebrate together while still abiding by the social distancing rules would mean a lot to them and allow for some celebration and closure to their senior year. Next comment from Emily Bruyere at 6023 Ironwood Drive. Please let the class of 2020 have an in-person graduation. We can push it out and have it outside. Just think of this. I just think this class has missed out on so much and deserves a normal graduation experience.
Next comment is from Nina Schwett, 6054 Sandalwood. On my first day of kindergarten, I was scared and nervous as I entered into the new building to face what would be one of the best adventures in my life. I faced many struggles during this time, but all of it shaped me to become the person I am today. I learned so many valuable lessons, made incredible friendships, and expanded my knowledge of the world around me. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to say goodbye to all of this. On an unexpected Friday, I walked out of my last class of a day, and I prayed I would return only to find I would not be back the following Monday. Although these times are unprecedented, I still pray there is a chance for me and many other seniors in the class of 2020 to have a chance to say goodbye to the friends, teachers, and school that shaped us. My pain for this situation is one that all the seniors feel, and no email, virtual graduation, or bittersweet Facebook post will help us to mourn the loss of an era for us. This is why I ask, as a student of the class of 2020, a daughter of a medical professional, and an individual going on to represent the city, that the class of 2020 will be given an opportunity to walk graduation in person, experience Bear Bash, Rad Grad, and Falcon Finale, and say goodbye to our teachers and friends who have impacted our lives so greatly. While graduation may seem like a fleeting memory to you, it is a current life for us, and we will not accept anything less. The next comment is Erica White, 5439 Jean Sorensen Drive. Dear esteemed board members of Billings Public Schools, as you may know by now, you have a plethora of parents and seniors, me included, who are displeased with the possible decision of a virtual graduation. I'm sure you have received letters stating how we seniors have already lost so much and do not wish to lose our graduation ceremony as well, which I hope you can see as being understandable. In this letter, I could give you all of the basic, cliche, cookie cutter reasons as to why you should allow us to have an in-person graduation ceremony like all of the classes before us have had. But as I have recently stated, I'm sure you have heard them all in letters and you have already received. Let me start off by saying that I trust whatever decision you make will be 100% for the well-being of the Billings community, and not because it's the easy thing to do or because everyone else in the nation is doing it. I would just like to say, though, that Montana has been doing very well during this pandemic compared to the rest of the nation. The number of COVID-19 cases has barely surpassed the 400 range, and the majority of those affected with the virus have recovered. Given that the population of Montana is a little over 1 million, I'd say we're doing relatively okay with this whole pandemic thing. With this said in mind, if the state of Montana continues to do well with keeping the curve flat at the time of graduation, and I ask you to please hold a ceremony with social distancing in mind. If the outbreak continues to get worse, though, then feel free to do what is best for the community. Thank you for reading. Next comment, Lisa Woods, 1430 Park Hill. What kind of orientation and guidance are you going to give the incoming freshmen? We missed all of the orientation meetings for these kids.
Okay, next comment from Kyla Vestal at 4536 Highline Drive. Please allow our seniors to walk for their diplomas. They have lost so much already this year. They have worked hard for the honor of receiving their diploma in front of friends, family, and peers. Consider Dealer Park, Amusement Park Drive-In, or even the grounds of Metra. Social distancing precautions can be implemented and make this work. I know many parents would jump at the chance to help if needed to make this a reality. Okay. Next is Vicky Carl at 1425 Oklahoma Star Trail West. It says graduation at Dealer Park in July, social distance graduates on field, social distance parents, only parents in the stands, have a stage to walk over and pick up diplomas, small group of senior musicians socially distanced perform, run graduation the normal way with principal and board of director members. Okay, next is Susan Humphrey at 1626 St. John's Avenue. Members of the school board, as a parent of a graduating senior at West High School, I would like to share my thoughts with you regarding graduation. I've had many discussions with my daughter about the uncertainty of returning to school, her upcoming graduation, Bear Bash, and life in general during these unprecedented times. A virtual graduation has been mentioned, and my daughter has mentioned her lack of interest in participating if it comes to this. Can we proceed with a ceremony, perhaps by holding it outdoors where social distancing can be done? How about De La Stadium? Graduation could be split alphabetically so as to limit attendance, allowing only the students and 2 parents. Time intervals could also be of help. Another idea is to have them do a drive up, get out, get your diploma, get back in your car, and leave setup. The Laurel Drive-In comes to mind. If the ceremony is televised, those at home who are unable to attend could watch. Students' pictures and names could be put up on the screen at either location for use during the ceremony. As a parent and member of this community, I believe we can come together to organize a graduation ceremony that is safe, that enables the students to receive their diplomas in person. We need to show our future leaders that we will prevail and celebrate their achievements. Thank you for your consideration.
Next comment is from Sheila Fig at 2926 Terry Avenue. We are praying that you will find a way to have graduation instead of holding it virtually for the senior class. After all the hard work they have put in over the past 13 years, we feel they deserve more than a virtual graduation. With the governor allowing churches to reopen if social distancing guidelines are followed and schools to resume May 7th, we feel that holding graduation is still possible. While it may still not look the same as in past years, could you use the metric, spacing the seniors out, allowing only parents of the seniors to attend, which would limit the number of people in the metro, and social distancing between guests. Keeping our distance, we may not be as close as we'd like, but a professional could be hired to video the graduation and sell the DVD so everyone is able to get that close-up experience once they have their DVD to watch. If people have compromised immune systems and choose not to attend, then their name can still be called and they can purchase a DVD of the entire graduation. Also, to limit the number in the metro, could you hold one graduation on Saturday, one on Sunday, and one on Monday of Memorial Day weekend for the different schools, and spray the chairs down with the same mist used in the classrooms to sanitize them? If there is a concern about holding it indoors, please look at doing the above by using Dalis Stadium instead. I understand the weather is always a concern during this time of year, but think we would be all okay sitting outside, even if it was raining, just to see our graduates get the ceremony that they deserve. Next comment, Stephanie G, no last name provided, at 8 Red Rock Drive. If I have a student who is a senior and I would like to see them get a traditional graduation ceremony, even if it has to be at a later date. Next comment, Julie Tallman, 6344 Ridgestone Drive North. Dear Billings Public School Board of Trustees, I'm a 4th grade teacher in Billings Public Schools, and I also have a sophomore and senior attending West High. As a teacher, I know how difficult the transition to online learning has been and how much the students are missing school, their friends, and activities. As a mom, I am writing to encourage all of you to figure out a way to honor our high school seniors with a ceremony. Even if we have to limit the number of guests and break the classes into smaller groups, having a ceremony where the students are acknowledged for their accomplishment while wearing their cap and gowns would mean the world to them. It's something they've been looking forward to for many years. Thank you for your consideration in holding a public high school ceremony for our seniors, respectfully.
Next is Leslie Peterson at 3295 Granger Avenue East. Consider the following options to have graduation. Change the dates to one school Saturday, Sunday, Monday, limit the number of guests to 4 per child, and split the class in half alpha-wise to get the numbers where they should be. Televise the ceremony on Community 7 for all to see. Also consider changing the layout to have the stage at the end, not the middle, to allow chairs to be spread out on the floor to accommodate as many as possible. Remove the aisle and have the teachers be around the outside to police it all. This would allow the whole metro to be used to house and separate guests to needed space between. And everyone must wear a mask regardless. Please don't take this away. You can make this happen if you work for it. Fight for these seniors. They deserve it. Next is from Mary Beth Crow at 4396 Rangeview Drive. I'm asking that the District 2 School Board consider allowing the graduates of 2020 to walk for graduation. As a district, we may have to think out of the box to make graduation work for this school year. Possible ideas to think about would be using Dalis Stadium and having each high school graduate on 3 consecutive days and limiting guests. Also consider the metro and once again visit with the county to see if each school could have a separate day for graduation with limiting guests. As a family, we would really like a group of willing volunteers or administrators to visit about the possibilities before the only solution is a virtual graduation. Thank you for all your time and thought into all the students of Billings Public Schools, their safety, as well as the graduates of 2020. We can get this done. Also, there have been conversations with other districts in our state. Also, have there been conversations with other districts in our state to see how they are handling graduation? Finally, Mary Beth Crow. Next is Heidi Blackford at 4542 Rangeview Drive. I have a senior this year and I'm hoping virtual graduation is not an option. We would really support having a graduation at a later date when it is safer or a limited group walking across the stage. These kids that have worked so hard really need to be recognized.
The next comment is Carrie Hill, 2936 Upper Highwood. I'm writing in support of a non-virtual graduation ceremony. Given the low incidence of COVID in Yellowstone County, around 2%, I believe that there are ways to provide a graduation ceremony that is safe and adheres to the governor's recommendation. Some possible options include having the ceremony outside, dayless, with a limit on guests and possibly with smaller groups at a time. While I understand avoiding crowded classrooms for the rest of the school year, I encourage you to consider providing an optional graduation ceremony to honor those students who have lost out so much already this year. Thank you for your consideration. Next comment is Mike Schenk, 2370 Westfield Drive. The graduation plan you're attempting to gain approval for absolutely must include parents. It's absolutely unconscionable that you'd consider a plan that excludes parents and guardians. Can students choose the 10? Stop hiding behind the groups of 10. The Air Force Academy celebrated their graduation in an outdoor ceremony. We should do the same here. They have the same group restrictions in Colorado. This is not a meaningful graduation. I cannot stress enough, any plan must include parents or the guardians. Someone from the board, please stand up and advocate for this. I cannot believe we've even started to entertain a proposal without parent involvement. I do not want to watch my daughter graduate on a screen. The next comment, Anika Yates, 2562 Lillis Lane. I want to go back to public school. Next comment, Ashley Kunza, 303 Wyoming. Oh, wait, sorry. We already did that one.
Looks like it's me, right?
Okay, back to you. Yep.
Okay, next is Emma Ament at 719 Acre Avenue. As a senior Skyview, are teachers going to be at the graduation so students can say goodbye? If so, are students going to be able to give them a hug, or is it just a handshake? Okay. Next is from Linda Hayden at 2203 Poly Drive. Please, please do not take graduation from our seniors. They have lost so much already. Next is Brian Schwett at 6054 Sandalwood Drive. I have twin daughters as graduating seniors at West High School. My daughters have worked their entire life to reach their high school graduation. To not reopen school and to have a video graduation is stealing from all they have worked hard from all they have worked for their entire life. We now know the Wuhan virus has a mortality rate of less than 0.5%. I bring this up as it is the reason for our children. It is the reason our children are out of school and the schools wanting to do video graduation. Only 14 people in Montana have died from the Wuhan virus, and only 13 people died from influenza in Montana this season. This virus is not what it was made out to be, and it is not deadly except to the elderly or those with comorbid conditions. The apocalypse never came, and it will not be coming with this virus. We know the young are the most healthy, and it does not affect them. To develop immunity, people need to be exposed, and the youth will develop the herd immunity that is needed. That is the only way to develop immunity. Thus, our youth should not be paying the price of those who should be sheltered, the frail and elderly. We don't shut down school when there are influenza outbreaks, and we shouldn't be keeping our children from attending school and having a normal graduation ceremony. Heck, you can't even call off schools when it's downright dangerous to drive on the ice-covered roads. And now you want to overreact and deny my children the opportunity to finish their senior year and not have a normal graduation. That is wrong and should not happen. If you vote against opening schools and against the normal graduation, you will be responsible for ruining thousands of kids' senior year. This they will never forget.
The next comment is Judy Morse, 2393 Fox Drive. Please allow the students to walk. I have one child and feel that they have had enough taken away from them. My husband is fighting for his life with esophagus cancer. It would be a huge honor for him to see his only child walk across the stage. Next one is from Lily Hagel, 6 Prince of Wales Drive. Can you do more for our children with special needs? Distance learning is so difficult for them. Do we find a way to safely learn in person? We are not retaining our skills we have learned so hard to obtain. Next one is Jeff Reed at 827 Avenue E. Somehow there needs to be a better way of getting and keeping children engaged with schoolwork. What we are doing now is not working.
Okay. Looks like there are 3 more comments. So first is from Adam Gekir at 607 North 31st, number 5. The tablets the school gave my kids aren't even up to date to do their homework. No one has been able to fix this, so cancel school and homework. Give the kids a pass or fail, since the school couldn't even get me the right technology to do the work assignments. Okay, next is Maddie Keeley, 2525 Park Ridge Lane. I am the student body president at Billings West High School and am extremely disappointed with the decision regarding graduation. What happened to allowing public comment and making a solution based off of that? It seems like a decision was made long before this meeting was held. Please allow us to graduate with our parents watching. Outside venues allow more people to watch. Weather is the least of our worries. I would sit in the rain if I had to, if it meant my parents could watch me receive my diploma. Students were never contacted during this process to help come up with a solution to create a safe graduation that is memorable to our class members. Please reconsider this decision. We deserve to graduate in person with parents and get our diploma in hand. The option presented tonight is not memorable or heartfelt at all. We deserve a physical graduation with parents and classmates. We as seniors have already gotten so much taken away from us. And the final comment, actually related to the school closure, but it came in after the fact. I'll go ahead and read it. It's from Brittany Anton at 1328 Marine Street. Please, I beg you, do not open the schools. I have 3 kids at 3 schools, and I also work at a separate school. My daughter is autoimmune, and I have a son with breathing issues. Please, I do not want to risk their safety. Please take the health of our vulnerable into consideration. Also, a big thank you to all SD2 staff for their quick transition and dedication to the education of our students. And that wraps up public comment, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would like to thank both Craig and Chris for reading the public comments. I think we set a record. I think there were about 100 public comments this evening, and I really want to thank our community from participating in the public comment. The students, the parents, community members, we are listening to what you have to say, and I appreciate your thoughtful and your respectful comments. With that, that concludes the agenda on our special board meeting this evening, and I will be recessing this meeting until Monday, May 4th at 5:30. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Have a good evening.